Oh, yeah. Thanks.
My feet don't touch on this couch.
Good to go when you are.
We're streaming.
Yes, streaming.
We're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. Welcome. This is our April Soberversary. Super exciting. We're so excited to continue this tradition and have folks come out and hear stories. And tonight we're going to get to hear Hunter's, which is amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Adrian usually freestyles this, and he's way cooler than me, and I needed to write this down, so I'm going to read from my notes. So, as most of you know, we recently lost a valued member of our community this month. Tonight, I wanted to take a moment to honor and celebrate this person. Sometimes we have opportunities to meet really special people that change us. That was the gift I was given working with this person. He was someone who was always helpful and really dedicated to making places more beautiful than when he found them. You could typically find him washing dishes, picking up a package he'd ordered, listening to something, or maybe not listening to something in his AirPods, or pulling his G-Wagon around downtown. He was so committed to setting goals and working really hard to accomplish them. Through our time together, we watched the light in him grow brighter and brighter. He transformed right in front of all of us from this quiet, reserved person to a leader in our community and a real role model in our groups. One of my favorite memories with this person was we had the opportunity to teach each other how to cook meals that were traditional for our cultures. And so I got to teach him how to cook lumpia, and we got to learn how to wrap grape leaves. And I don't think I've ever laughed as hard trying a new food. And those are memories that I will cherish forever. And I'm happy that I got to share those with folks in this room. He was a gift. My heart is broken for the end of his story, and I'm incredibly lucky to have been a part of his book. Tonight, I wanted to honor and acknowledge all of those that aren't able to be with us physically, unable to cut cakes with us for celebratory days, and lean on during difficult times, and for whatever circumstance we lost them to, knowing that we will carry them in our hearts forever. I'm thankful to be able to be in a position where I witness folks grow and do really beautiful things in their lives. And with that comes an incredible amount of love and sometimes loss. And it's so worth it. Thank you for letting us be a part of your story. You are so worth it. I'd like for us just to take a moment of silence to honor folks in your life you may have lost. And I invite you, if your heart is called to it, there's candles all around the room, to go ahead and pick one up and turn one on in honor of remembrance for someone you may have lost. And now I'm going to lead you guys in a song. I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to warmly welcome Hunter up. So Hunter is in the Lemma program November of 2014. He has been a huge part of the program since then. He's going to come and chair meetings with us really soon, which is super exciting. We're so thankful for you to be able to come and be a part of tonight. So warm welcome for Hunter.
Hello. I'm Hunter. I'm an addict and an alcoholic. Hey, and I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm grateful, humbled to be here tonight. Thanks, Allison, for the words. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about somebody specific that I have lost in my life as a result of this disease, this condition, and it sucks. So yeah, I like I said, I'm very humbled to be here tonight to share a little bit of my story. As Allison said, I got to Sobriety House. I think it was November 28th, 2014. I've been sober ever since. I don't necessarily keep track of the days, but I did look on the way over here. It's 7 years, 5 months, and 1 day. And I'm forever grateful for this place because you'll hear more. But I tried to get sober in many different ways at different points of my life before I got to Sobriety House, and whether it was I just wasn't ready yet, or whatever the situation was, I wasn't at the place yet, I guess. But like I said, I've been sober ever since I've been here, and so I get the opportunity to walk by here often because I live very close by, and I just have a lot of gratitude for this place, for the faculty here. Several people here now were here when I got here, and they'll probably tell you that I wasn't an extremely easygoing client. But yeah, no. So the day that I got here, I set out in the Punch Bowl Social parking lot, and I was sitting in the parking lot smoking a cigarette, and I would get up and start to walk towards the front door, and then I would turn around. I was terrified. I was terrified. I was desperate. I wasn't sure, like, if, I was like kind of on the fence of if I was ready to walk through the door or not. And even once I made it in here, I was very hesitant. I didn't want to do this at all. But my life had gotten to a point where I didn't want the results that I was getting anymore either. I got to Sobriety House with one outfit, which was what I was wearing. And I was, before I got here, I was sleeping, or living, whatever you want to call it, in different parking garages. Sometimes if it was bad weather, I would sleep in car washes. That was the thing. At the time, my daughter, who is 9 now, she was going to come, but she's in tumbling class. She was in foster care for the second time. It was not a pretty sight. I had, thrown away everything I loved and cared about most to continue to use. So, I'll back up a little bit. I will go over briefly kind of what led up to that point. talk about, being here and kind of, what happened to when I got sober. And, I want to spend a lot of time on like what it's been like since, because I feel like that's really my experience I have to share is, the days that I've accumulated by and not put drugs and alcohol in my body, and what my life has evolved into as a result of just like trying to do this as consistently as possible. A couple things I want to say, like before I get into that, is like, so I, the 12 steps are a big part of my path. And so my understanding and my interpretation of those is just that, and then I do go to Cocaine Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, but I don't speak for those places. And I don't obviously speak for Sobriety House either. I'm just here sharing my experience. And I obviously didn't set out to become, a drug addict that was homeless, right? I had a fairly normal childhood. But when I drank for the first time, like I immediately felt like everything was okay. Like I immediately felt, and I was like 13, I immediately felt like a part of. And, this isn't something I was conscious of as a 13-year-old, but as I look back, it was like such a relief when I drank. I think it was peppermint schnapps, such a relief. It was like all of the anxieties and all of the like kind of the loudness in my brain just kind of melted away. And so, that was like, at that point, I was like, I feel really good when I have a buzz or whatever. And then I started to kind of feel like not so good when I was sober. And as I got older and I grew into an adult, like that feeling, got worse and worse and worse. And the things that I was using to get a buzz changed, right? From alcohol to different drugs and that kind of thing. And I didn't really, I guess like it was probably like a sign that I was not a normal, experimenter of drugs and alcohol, when like, I think in high school, I had to like go to the hospital and have my stomach pumped because I had taken too much cold medicine or whatever. My friends that I was in school with weren't like doing, that wasn't like, they weren't doing that, But, I very quickly graduated to like hard drugs that really changed kind of what I had to do, and the consequences and the price tags associated to using those things got higher, and the things that I had to do to continue to use, whether that be like lie or steal or, live just a completely separate life, be different people at different times depending on who was in front of me. I very quickly kind of learned those not so great skills, and I think when I was 18 was the first time I went to rehab. I obviously wasn't ready yet, and but I was kind of like doing it because my family was concerned, and I was a 28-day program, got out, went right back to what I was doing before. So this kind of like cycle of holding it together a little bit externally, maybe getting a job, kind of show like maybe demonstrating to the people, my family and stuff, that I was doing well, and then it all falling apart. That cycle like repeated itself over and over and over again for years. And the consequences got higher, whether it be legal troubles, financial troubles, loss of relationships. Everybody can kind of relate, or a lot of people can relate to those things. I always kind of convinced myself that like it wasn't that bad, but it was, and it continued to get, worse and worse. I continued to, like I said, pay these huge price tags toward for using and drinking. And I did that because, like, for me, for alcoholism and addiction, that's the other thing I do want to mention. If I say, I use those words interchangeably because just for me personally, like, what I'm using, whether it be drugs or alcohol, is really just kind of like, it's not really the problem. It's like what I'm using to treat the problem. And so I like this, I use this kind of this analogy that, like, if like all the drugs and different types of alcohol were on a table and I was like using, there's certainly things that I would choose to use first, but then, like, before it was said and done, everything would be gone. So I use those words interchangeably. But for me, like, the condition that I suffer from is, like, I feel really miserable a lot of the time sober, and I don't know why. And I know that when I get high or when I drink, that goes away, instantly. So, I continued to pay the price tags associated to using drugs and alcohol to feel okay, no matter what they were. They continue to get higher and higher and higher, whether it be extended periods of incarceration, of being locked up, or more treatment centers or clinics or whatever it is, evictions, these kinds of, all of these problems, because I kept putting myself through that because I just wanted to feel okay. I just wanted to feel okay, and I didn't. I felt terrible. And so, like I said, this repeated for years. I don't need to go into all these gory details, but this continued for years. It continued to get worse. And kind of this, right before I got to sobriety house, like I said, a few of the more lonely and devastating nights of my life were spent, like I said, one night in particular, it started raining, and I didn't have anywhere to go. I was on West Colfax, and I literally went to one of those drive-through car washes and laid down on the, like, concrete floor because it was the only dry place that I could find. It was cold and rainy, and I was alone, and nobody wanted anything to do with me. My family had said, you can call, but don't ask us for anything, right? I had chosen that I needed this thing to feel okay so badly that I was willing to get to that place. And then some things happened. I made some, fortunately, for me, when I start using drugs and alcohol, like, the only time I really stop is if I get, locked somewhere where I can't use anymore. I guess that's really kind of like the only outcome for me. And that happened, and like I said, my daughter was in foster care. I guess that is an important note to mention that, once I had, once she had kind of gotten taken away and put in, place with people that could take care of her, I really wanted to die. I wanted to, from that point, and then that was like 8 months or 6 months before I got to sobriety house. My goal, waking up, I wanted to be back asleep. I wanted to put as much as I could in my body to where I could not feel, my reality was not real. It was just the shame and guilt that I was carrying around that was so heavy. I just wanted it to stop in any way possible. But yeah, so I hit a brick wall, got arrested, put in Denver City Jail. I had been arrested and I had criminal, thing, I had experienced that before. So that wasn't new to me, but for whatever reason, it was like something was different. When I got placed in the holding cell or whatever, I started crying, like, different than I've ever cried before. Like, this deep, deep sob. I'm like crying out of my nose and my ears and my eyes. It was like I don't know. I guess maybe it was like that spiritual experience that people mention, but I knew in that moment that like I did not want to keep doing what I was doing anymore. It didn't matter what I had to do. I just knew that I wanted that to be over. And there was like willingness that I had never had before. I was willing to do whatever it took. I had been to 12-step meetings before. And I'll get into this more, but like, I didn't come into this thing with a great, like, I was not subscribed to the whole God concept, to God or all that stuff. That was really difficult for me. So in that moment, when I was in that like jail cell, I was like, if this means I have to do like the 12 steps, I'm even willing to do that. And like, I mention it like that because like, I was really resistant to doing this. I did not want to do it at all. But I was really out of ideas. I was so out of anything I could come up with on how to like be okay, feel some sense of okayness and have like an okay life. So fortunately for me, like at the time I was not very thrilled with the court systems for taking my daughter away but all this stuff, right? I was very angry. But fortunately for me, like because of all of that, I was introduced, there's a social worker involved and I remember her being on the phone with me. I was in like the jails, in Denver City or whatnot. And she was like, all right, so there's 2 places that you could go if you want to go to treatment. And I did. And she was like, there's a place called Stout Street and there's a place called Phoenix Concept. And my daughter's name is Phoenix. So naturally I'm like, oh, that place, which happened to be obviously Sobriety House. So she helped facilitate getting me in here. And that was really for me, like how I came to arrive here at Sobriety House. I think I got out like Thanksgiving morning or something, 2014. That end of November, that last week is still a little foggy. So I believe that was the day I got out of jail. And the next day I came here. And like I said, I was terrified to come here. There was part of me that like that still like there was a voice in me, that was like, we'll be fine out there, like we can keep doing this. And I was terrified because the thing that I had found since I was 13 years old that gave me some comfort, right? That gave me some relief from this feeling that I'm just so irritated and so, got all this pent up aggression and agitation, that thing that gave me this relief from that, I don't get that anymore, And so I think that, that's like, I was terrified coming in here. And that's why like, the beginning, this like coming in here and being in here is like one of the hardest parts, or was one of the hardest parts for me, because like I don't have the thing I was using to treat this condition, this problem that I suffer from. It's just raw. It's just uncomfortability. I'm miserable and I have no relief. So like I said, I had that some willingness that just kind of overcame me in that moment in that jail cell. I tried to channel that as much as possible. When I got here, I got here, but I stayed at the Phoenix Concept part of things, and the meetings were coming in here, outside meetings. And very quickly, I think within the first week, I had scoped somebody out and asked them to be my sponsor or whatever. Right. I remember this person, I was attracted, to asking this person to help me because they were coming down to Phoenix Concept. And then after the meeting, they were outside talking to the clients, talking to the homeless people, talking to anybody that was shuffling up and down the street that seemed like they like needed some help. This person was giving them kindness and respect and time and attention. And that to me, just like, I don't know, I was drawn to that. And they just seemed like they were very calm and quiet. They had a sense of calm and quiet. And that was something I never knew that I wanted really badly. That was the thing that I got the second that I, put whatever in my body, that like fleeting relief that I got. That's what it was. It was like the ability to sit still for a moment and to feel a sense of like artificial calmness, and then it was gone. Right. So it was like first week, I tried to just hang on for dear life. I was very sick, coming off all types of things, very miserable, wanting to leave really badly. There were times when I really wanted to leave here. There were times when I made plans to leave, and, fortunately that didn't happen. I tried to stay as engaged as possible, with this. I was still really angry that I was even having to do this. Even after all that I described, I, was very much in conflict with a lot of the staff here. At times, I was just, like I said, I was miserable, and I didn't have what I used for so many years to get relief from that. So I got a sponsor really quickly, and I started calling them and meeting up with them very frequently, as frequently as we could. They would tell me like, meet me at this coffee shop. This was when I was in phase 2. They were like, meet me at this coffee shop at 3:00. And I was like there at 3:00. I wasn't a punctual person, but I wanted to give myself the best shot I could. Being here at Sobriety House, it was, this place is very dear to me. The best thing that that happened as me coming here was, it introduced me to the person that helped me through the steps. It introduced me to a lot of different meetings around, and I started building up a community of people. Really, like any meetings that were coming in, I was like scoping out the people that seemed like they were calm. They had that sense of quiet and calm, getting their phone numbers and texting them, because I was like terrified to call strangers. So after the meeting, I was like, hey, it's Hunter. And that was it. But I started building up a little safety net, a little foundation. There were times when I was in Sobriety House that I was extremely tempted to get high. I'll mention 2 of them. One of which, I was at Phoenix Concept smoking a cigarette one morning, and a guy walked by that owed me money from the street, and he tried to pay me in drugs. And I was standing in front of Phoenix Concept, which was like my fortress, right? And I had the gut reaction, enough just to say like, no, dude, I'm good. Like, I'm here, And that was the first time that I'd ever gotten through an experience like that, where somebody was trying to hand me something and I was able to be like, no, After that, I was like, I was blown away. And not like, so then like an hour later, I'm in my room. I'm like, man, should I have just gotten it? Like, 'cause like, all those other voices start like coming up. Right. I'm like, damn, I blew that one, But no, that was really cool. And then there was another time when I was on the light rail. Same thing kind of happened. Ran into a guy from the street. He opened up his mouth and he had a bunch of drugs that he was getting rid of in his mouth, and I was able to say no. I had my sponsor to call immediately after that situation. Like the thing that happened at Phoenix Concept, I could go right back inside and there was just a bunch of guys like getting ready for their day. Right. Everybody was trying to do this thing. And that was very important to me. And looking back, just extremely important to just start building up that net, that foundation of people to rely on. Cause like, I have not been able to get and stay sober this long. And, my life has unfolded in all these great ways, like on my own at all. Like the only thing that I feel like I've done is get here and try to stay willing to apply this stuff in my life imperfectly, but as consistently as possible. And I've been introduced to great and amazing people that have just helped me along the way. One of those people, again, was somebody that came to, I think it was a Friday night meeting at Phoenix Concept. They came into that meeting and I got their phone number. They then started picking me up from Phoenix Concept and taking me to like NA meetings that I couldn't go to because, we're out just because of logistics, I guess, right? All the while I was here at Sobriety House, my daughter Phoenix was coming here to have visits. We had a visit in Sobriety House up in the living room. It was like a couple hour visit and then a bunch of visits at Phoenix Concept. And I was getting to the point where my visitation with her was extending and like I needed to find a place to live that could do overnights. And, unfortunately for me, the Gaylord wouldn't have worked and like some other all these options wouldn't have worked. And I was looking for an apartment and I had evictions and a criminal record, so nobody would rent to me and all this complicated stuff. I'm like, how am I ever going to figure this out? And I remember I was just walking down the street. I was like, anytime I wasn't working, I had gotten a job at the time. I was trying to figure this out, trying to figure out where am I going to live so I can have my daughter there. And this guy, Joe, who had come to the meeting and I had gotten his number, was texting me. He's like, hey, are you going to come to the meeting tonight? I'm like, no, I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. He's like, oh, well, like, I have a house and a bunch of extra room. Like you can come live with me until you figure it out. I was like, okay, that's kind, and ultimately, and Joe at the time had 11 years clean. And ultimately that became another one of my best friendships ever. I lived with Joe for 4 years. My daughter, when I got full custody of her back, she lived there. We lived there for, up until, 2018 or so. And I have to say that like I had gotten a sponsor. I had started applying these principles. I'd started using my sponsor. We were meeting up, talking about, doing the step work. And I was just applying this stuff as best I could. And I know that I didn't like manipulate or figure out that situation. Like that's something that like the universe just like handed to me. I don't know, it was like, wow, like something is helping me out here. And I didn't come in here with some, a strong, actually it was a huge aversion to God and all of that stuff. And I will say that like, I have no idea, what God is. When I say that, I don't know what that really means. But I know that I didn't do that. I know that I didn't work that out myself. So that was kind of a beautiful gift that I got as a result of just trying to keep my head down and stay willing and do this thing. Let's see. So what's the time like? Is there? Okay. 20 minutes left. Okay, great. Thanks. So, like I said, I got in here, I got a sponsor very quickly and I started using utilizing them and meeting up with them. We started talking about principles, spiritual principles. And up until that point, it was very difficult, right? Because I'm miserable sober and I don't have anything to treat that with. And it has been my experience that like applying these principles, when I say principles, I mean things like I like the oversimplification of that is like, how can I be kind to myself and others? It's like, things like being loving and tolerant and accepting and forgiving and selfless and humble and helpful. How can I do more of those things like that? Like these principles and trying to focus on doing more of those things was my like entry point into like whatever God is. So when I was here at Sobriety House, like I would meet up with my sponsor and he would be like, we would talk about principles and I could come back here and like try to be more like honest or authentic, try to be more willing, try to like do my chore just like a little bit more, right? Like just like put like a little bit more energy into it, right? Because I'm like thinking of others. Like other people want like a clean house, right? So I'm gonna do that for them. Trying to those little tiny insignificant, what seems like insignificant acts of like kindness and love started some momentum for me, this spiritual momentum. And like I said, I felt I didn't like the idea of praying, like all of that stuff. I was just very, whatever. I had all these opinions right in my head of what I thought that was, but I could focus on I could like look at a principle and be like, I'm going to try and do that better today. That was an action I could take. And I think that, for me, that was the gateway into some relief from that problem that I've been describing. Because it's been my experience that the more that I'm willing to practice these principles, be kind to myself and others, the more relief I get from that feeling that I'm miserable, I'm irritable, I'm not content, I'm uncomfortable. That's something that I still, suffer from today. It's not like I stopped using drugs and alcohol and the problem went away, because like if it's I stopped using drugs and alcohol, I got to find something to replace that with, to give me the ease and comfort that the drugs and alcohol were giving me. And the principles, the steps, God, whatever God is, has been that replacement for me. And the other cool thing is like, I don't pay the price tags I paid to using drugs and alcohol to feel okay. That there's not really any price tags I pay to using, kindness and love and God, whatever words I want to use, we want to use for that, as the solution to my problem. On the contrary, like my life has expanded in all these great ways. Like I said, my daughter, she's in tumbling class tonight. I own a house. I have a little family going on. Getting ready to take a trip out of the country. I have a job that I can provide like a really amazing life for my little girl, and try to work to continue to make up to the things that I did, when she was younger. And I think like, and all of that is just, it's a byproduct, I believe, of practicing these principles as best as or as consistently as I can. And I've done, I've made a lot of mistakes over the past 7.5 years. But I've never stopped being willing to try to be better. And I've never gotten too far away from people that I can help, from some sort of seeking out spirituality, whether that be meditating or praying or snowboarding or, taking my daughter to the Olivia Rodrigo concert, those are things that I do, that I connect, and I try to expand my heart a little bit. And through doing that, I get relief, I'm doing things like this, trying to be around. I love being around people that are just trying to get sober, because I feel like, if you can relate to that problem that I described, like that you're not okay, that you're miserable, you don't know why. When you get high, you get drunk, and all that goes away. When you do start drinking or using, like you really don't have much control over how much you use or drink. If you can relate to that, like I believe that if you do very similar things to what I did, like you'll get the relief that I've gotten as well. And it's a beautiful thing. The hard part of this thing too, like we were, like that was mentioned earlier, is that people don't make it, and it's I don't, it's something that I have no idea why. It doesn't make any sense. I hope that I can continue on this path and stay willing. Today, I know that I'm willing to come here and practice these principles and try to be real and loving, you know. And I'm going to wake up tomorrow and try to get myself in the headspace to do that again, you know, and keep doing that. And I don't know. I think that, like, you know, like I said, if you can relate and if you have any other questions, I think I will wrap it up there. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to come share with everyone. And yeah, I'm Hunter. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, and that's all I got.
Hunter, are you open to questions?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do. When you were first here and you got cravings or you felt like, just cravings, like what did you, like, how did you deal with it? Like, how?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had a sponsor, so if I could use the phone at that point, I would call him.
What if we don't have a sponsor? We're like on phase one.
Yeah. So certainly you can talk about it with the other people around you. I think it's always good to just talk aloud about what's going on. You know, when my brain goes into a place of like negativity, whether that be a craving or whatever, it's really difficult for me to just like think my way out of it. You know, it's like almost impossible. But I can distract myself, and like a really good way that I've found to distract myself is like focus on somebody else. So like if you're in here, right, and you have other clients in here, other friends that you've, you know, in here, or people that are new, right, and you're really having a bad day, like if somebody had called me and said, hey, I'm struggling, what should I do? I would suggest to them, go find somebody to give a few minutes of your time to and ask them how their day is going. It's you know, a lot of this stuff feels like, you know, why, I have no idea why it works. And it all feels like crazy theories when you're new and you're hearing all this stuff, you know, it's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? You know, but I would say, like, if you're not happy with the results you've been getting outside of here, experiment and try it out and see if you get different results, you know? So yeah, so that principle of getting out of myself and focusing on somebody else is so powerful, you know. That's why it's like when I was asked to come here, I was like so excited, you know, because I know that like by me coming and sharing about, you know, my struggles and my path or whatnot, I'm y'all are helping me, you know, this is helping me tenfold right now. So
the God thing, how did you get past that? I mean, I have a hard time with those 12 steps. I look at them every day and I'm like, I don't get them. I don't know. I've been in these rooms forever. I've read them. I don't get them. It's the God thing. I have a hard time with that, kind of like you know, but I know I'm done. I know I can't use it and I'm broken. I just don't even know where to go. The God thing, I'm stuck on that.
Yeah. I was in the same place. Like, just the word was hard for me to say. I had like a gut reaction with all these opinions and thoughts that filled my head. Like I didn't have any power over that happening. I would say, like, if you don't have a sponsor yet, you know, like I would say that's kind of the first step, is to find somebody to help you, because they're going to share their experience with this. And when I looked up at that wall and I read that stuff, like, it was very different than when I was going through them. Something I did, I like replaced God with like man, you know, that's kind of I don't know. I felt very awkward trying to pray in the beginning, and I still do sometimes. Some days I'm like, is God even real? And some days I feel super close to it, whatever it is. Still today, like I'm like, it's like, it like ebbs and flows. So, you know, if you can, like, you don't have to say God, you know, when you pray. For one thing, you can say, like, you know, like when I was sitting here before I came up here and I was thinking about my friend who had passed away. I was asking her to kind of help me with sharing tonight, sharing from my heart tonight. So, yeah, but if you haven't, if you don't have a sponsor yet, I would say focus on trying to, find somebody to help you out and share their understanding. So, yeah.
Yeah, your number after this meeting.
Yep.
You came at the perfect time for me, honestly.
Cool. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah,
So
Joe?
you mentioned going to treatment before. So the first time you did the steps was when you came to Sobriety House and got a sponsor?
The first time I honestly did the steps, yeah. I went to a treatment center one time, and I'm like the person that comes to treatment, and I'm like, third day, I'm like rock star client, right? I like went up to my room and I did all the steps, and like one night, I'm like, I'm done. Let's go, But yeah, it was a very different experience this time, for sure. Yep.
Any more questions?
I got 100 more, but I'll ask you later.
Okay, sounds good. Yep.
Did you go to a lot of AA and NA meetings?
I did. In the beginning, I went to, and that was kind of something I left out. In the beginning, I went to all meetings, like AA, NA, CA meetings. I just happened to really like the CA meetings I was going to, so that's where I kind of fell into and found my kind of group. If you ask me, like, is cocaine like what you're in here for, I would say no. But there were certainly nights and times and parts of my life where that was a huge thing that I was struggling with. But in CA, it's there's all different types of people I see in CA meetings. People that have never done cocaine, people that think of themselves as just alcoholics. So I just felt like very welcome there. So that's where I found my group, and that's where I mostly do meetings at now. So, yep.
Did you hear about the CA barbecue they're having at Argo Park or something?
TMA,
Is it
that was the TMA one.
I thought it was CA. Next week, I wanted to see if that was still like something that, has anybody else heard of that? I wanted to ask you about the process with your daughter. Like, how long did it take to actually get the custody, and was like CPS willing to like help you financially? Did you get any help from them? Or?
Yeah, those are good questions. I'll touch on it briefly, and I can share more details after the meeting too with you. So I think it was 6 months before they decided like she's going to come back with you. I don't remember them helping me much financially, but they helped me get here. And I think that was, they helped financially with that part of it for sure. So, but I was terrified. Like when that started happening, I was like, am I even capable of doing this? I don't want to put this little angel through any more suffering. And I had a serious conversation with myself and other people about like, should I just let the people she's with adopt her? Cause I know I don't want to keep doing this. And I talked about that in a meeting, and I'll never forget. A guy came up to me after a meeting and said, it's like feels like such an insignificant part of your life, but it was like a part where you mentally went right instead of left. And he said like, that might be the case, but if you don't try as hard as you can every day, you'll regret it for the rest of your life, and that's what I did. I tried as hard as I could to be the best, dad I could be. And ultimately like God or the universe or whatever decided that should be a thing, So, but yeah, I was terrified. Yeah.
How crucial do you think it is to do the steps?
I think it's paramount. I mean, it's like, so for me, it was a requirement. Like I tried to get sober every way I could think of before this. Like I said, I did not want to do this at all. I even one time I went to a 3-month treatment center that was a Scientology based place almost in Canada because I didn't want to do the 12 steps. And they were like, we don't do the 12 steps here. I was like, cool, and it wasn't helpful. It was the opposite of helpful. So I'm sure that other people get sober and stay sober in other ways. But for me, this was and is the foundation, And anytime I start feeling a little rocky, I come back to the foundation, which is the steps, the principles behind the steps. And I didn't know what the principles behind the steps were by reading the steps. That's like one of the big things about having a sponsor is like they shared their experience with applying these principles in their life. And then you get to relate to them or not. And, so yes, I would say like, if you're an addict or an alcoholic like I am, then this can be a replacement for the drugs and alcohol and give you the relief that those were giving you. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep, I'm here to tell you, Hunter did not want to do those steps.
Absolutely. Yep.
Love hearing that, Hunter.
Yeah.
Hi, I wanted to know if you're no longer triggered or have cravings now after such a long time of sobriety, when did it, around how many years or months would you say that you weren't triggered or have cravings as often or easily?
Yeah, I'll say that in the first 3 months, they were really frequent. They started to trickle off. And I correlate that to I got a sponsor and started working the steps very quickly. And I started to I started just, like I said, it all sounded like crazy theories. And I just said, I'm going to experiment and see if this actually works. And I started to experience some relief, like within the first couple of months. Maybe it's not a ton, but it was like, I would get through a whole day and I wouldn't think about drugs or alcohol, which is a big deal, or like I felt happy. Like I felt content and happy for a few moments. Like those things were very foreign to me. And so when I started experiencing those, it increased my motivation to keep going. So I was like, whoa, this might actually work for me. Like I didn't realize somebody could be sober and happy at the same time. And like I am, like maybe just a little bit, but they started to trickle off. I don't know when they like fully stopped because, I'll have a random dream every once in a while still, and it used to be like I would dream and be like, all right, where is it? Because I know I got it in my dream. I picked up like it's got to be here somewhere. And now it's like I'm terrified that actually happened when it's like a nightmare now. Like I wake up and I'm like, whoa. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just wondering about that. I think after 3 months is when I kind of felt that same thing too. But then it's also like my chronic relapse after 3 or 4 months too. So that's why I was asking that. So I like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should I keep asking questions?
If you have one.
Okay, I'll talk to him.
Cool. I don't think I'm gonna come back up there, Hunter, but thank you so much for coming. And we're gonna have some cake. Let's celebrate.
I am.
Lead the way.